Okay, so welcome to this video on Math 8. It's 6.3a, so hopefully this is the only video we need to get through 6.3, but it could be a little bit longer. So we're in chapter 6 of Big Ideas, and we're trying to write a linear function that relates y to x. So we're writing a function. We want to see what if we take y, what is it that we have to do to y to get x? So the best way to look at one of these is to try to think about what is happening to y from maybe, let's say, even here to here. So if we go from here, how much did it go up by? And how much did it go over by, right? That's what we want to kind of pay attention to. So how much did we go up and how much did we go over? Well, we went up 3 and we went over 2. So we know that if we take the x, we need to go up 3 and over 2, right, to get to the next point. So that's our slope. So what we want to do is we want to put change in y over change in x. Well, the change in y, we said, was 3. You can kind of see it down there on the graph. The change in x was 2, and this is our slope of our function. So if we can just figure out change in y over change in x, that's going to help us quite a bit. So we know that y is going to equal 3 over 2x plus some value. Well, before we just kind of quickly try to figure out what that value is, why don't we take a point and plug it in and see if that can help us to figure out what this plus is. So I'm going to put plus question mark here for just a second. We don't always have to do it this way, but in this case, I want to kind of show you something cool. So I'm going to take this point right here, which is 4, 3, and I'm going to investigate what happens if I use 4 and 3. Well, we know that 4 is the x value, right? And we know that 3 is the y value, correct? So if we take the x value of 4 and the y value of 3 right here, so let's use red in this case. We know our x value is 4, so I'm going to put 4 here. We know our y value is 3, so I'm going to put 3 here. I'm going to leave everything else the same. 3 over 2, that's 3 over 2. This is multiplied and then plus question mark. So hopefully you can see what we did. We just took that point that's highlighted, okay? The highlighted point. I'm going to erase some of this stuff so you can see just what I'm looking at. We took that highlighted point and we plugged it in. So we plugged in the 3, which was for y, and the 4 for x from the yellow highlighted area. Now the question is, how does this work out? Well, 3 times 4 is 12, so we know that that's going to be that. So we got this right going on over here. We know that 3 times 4 over here is 12, so we're going to have 12 divided by 2. So I'm going to have 12 divided by 2 plus something, right? And that's going to equal 3. Well, that means we have 3 is equal to 6 plus something. 6 plus something. So now you just have to ask yourself, what is that something? 6 plus what is 3? Well, we can't add anything really. We're actually subtracting something, right? We're going to have a negative number. So what I could tell you to do is even think of this like an equation. Even think of this as 3 is equal to 6 plus a for a number, right? And how do we get a alone? Think about that. Anybody want to jump in and tell us how we get a alone? Yes? Yeah, or actually subtract 6, right? Subtract whatever's with it. So if we subtract 6 on both sides, we'll get a is equal to negative 3. And we'll find that our number at the end of our equation is negative 3. So that whole time we really want the equation to be the following. Here's our answer. Y equals 3 over 2x minus 3, or plus negative 3. This is our answer, okay? So that's kind of cool. It's still y equals mx plus b, but we're doing it a little differently. We're thinking about it a little bit differently now. So that was a graph. Let's look at a table. Let's think about a table for a second. So pause the video if you need to copy that down, but I'm going to scroll down, and I'm going to ask if we could look at this table and figure out what's going on. So I'm going to just move this down for a second so we have a little more space, and then we'll look at this table here. So if we look at this table, we need to figure out change in y over change in x, agree? So let's do this. Let's make it change in y for red, and then our ode to Christmas, I guess, change in x. So look at the y and figure out what it's changing by. So if you look at this change, what is that change from 9 to 7? Change by? -2, exactly. So we went down by 2 and we did it again, and we did it again. It changed by -2. So change in y, I guess I could say, is -2. Over the change in x, and if we look at the x here, -3 to -2, -2 to -1, right? We see a few things going on there. How does -3 become -2? Yes? Yeah, it went up by 1, exactly. Thank you. Good work there. So we went up by 1, and we went up by 1, and we went up by 1. So our change in y over change in x is -2 over 1. It might seem familiar to you. It might. So now we have y equals mx plus b, right, is our normal form. So I'm just going to do this. I'm going to use this, and I'm going to bring it down here. So y equals -2x plus, right, something. Should I put question mark again? Is that good? So why don't we put question mark again? So I'll use a different color. I'll use blue to signify question mark. We don't know what this is. The thing that I want to know is, do we have an x and do we have a y? Do we have an x and do we have a y? Because we can figure it out, yeah? Which one do you want to pick from the table? Which x and y? Pair. It doesn't matter. Yes? 0 and 3 is a great choice. 0 and 3 is the best choice in my opinion, actually. So we're going to pick 0 and 3 for our x and y, and we're going to use that down here. So I'm going to go ahead and put 3 for the y, and I'll put 0 for the x. So I'm just going to go ahead and show you that. Okay. And then I'm going to leave the -2 alone, and plus question mark. So all of this is what we're doing. Well, look at what we have. We have 3 is equal to question mark if we simplify that. So really our whole entire answer is going to be this thing right here with, so y is equal to -2x plus the question mark, which in this case we know was 3. And that's how we can write an equation from a table that relates x to y. We know that this function is taking your x, multiplying it by -2, and then adding 3. So we're going to pause the video in just a second. You're going to look down at the next part in your paper here, and we want to use this to write a linear function that relates the two. So you can use y equals mx plus b if you know the b, the y-intercept already, that's fine. Or you can do the system that I just tried on the last problem. So pause the video and give these two problems a shot. Good luck. So here are the answers. You got to show work to get the credit for this, of course. I'm going to tell you what they are, but please make sure you're showing all of that work to get them. This is the answer to this one, and this is the answer to that one. So we were looking for these two answers for numbers 1 and 2 on the Now You Tries. It seems like my class is telling me that it's going okay, so we're going to go on and try to talk about some other stuff. So now let's talk about how we could do this in a real world problem, like a situation happened. So you're controlling a aerial vehicle. I guess you're controlling a drone, which is what it sounds like, an unmanned aerial vehicle. So we can just call that a drone. And this shows the height of the drone certain minutes after you start going from cruising altitude. So you're going from you're going down basically after time goes. So the drone is eventually going to come down to the ground, I guess. So let's look at a linear function for this thing. So we need to know the change in y over change in x for sure. So I'm looking at change in y as -5. So my change in y is -5. And I want to divide that by my change in x. So I'm seeing my change in x is +10. So my change in x is +10. So that symbol there, the triangle, is just change. Delta, they call it. Delta y over delta x. So we know that -5 divided by -10 is -1/2. So we have -1/2 here for our change in y over change in x. So if we're writing an equation, I mean, this is no different. It's just talking about an actual situation. And then they're going to probably ask you a question about the situation. But if we look at writing the linear function, right, and we say y equals mx plus b, We know the m is the 1/2, right, plus b. We don't know this, so I've been putting a question mark here. Well, I want to see if we can shortcut this a little bit. Does anybody know what the y-intercept would be? Because that's the starting point of something. That's the starting point. Yes, Trey. 65 is correct. That's right. Because after 0 minutes we're at 65, we know that if we looked at a graph and we went 0 on the x, so we don't go this way, we don't go that way, we stay on the x-axis, on the y-axis, and we go 65 right here, 65, that's going to be that point. So we can actually save ourselves some work by saying y equals negative 1/2 x plus 65. That's the function we want. That's a function because it will take any amount of minutes and tell you when that drone's going to do. When is that drone going to be on the ground, for example? So now we want to graph it. I'm just going to do a little sketch so you can kind of see I started that graph, right? But here's just a sketch of that thing. So if this is, let's do this actually. Let's make it look like that. So if this is 65 here, right? And we're going down 1/2, right? It's going to take us a long time to get to the ground. So why don't we go by 5s on the y-axis? So 65, 60, 55, 50, 45, 40, 35, 30. It doesn't seem like I even have enough space there, so that's unfortunate. Move something around here, I guess. Okay. So 65, 60, 55, 50, 45, 40, 35, 35, 30, 25, 20, 15, 10, 5. It's not looking nice, but you get the gist, right? I tried my best. So now we got to go down 1/2. So if we go down 5 instead, we have to go over 5. So it's going to kind of look something like, it's going to be sloping down for a long time. And the question is, when does it actually hit here? Like, when does it actually get to the end? So if we look at this and we say we're going down 1/2 every time, well, if we go down 65, how many do we go over? How many do we go over? What would this point be here? That's the question. Well, we went down 65, so instead of going down 1/2, we go twice as far over, right? We go down 65, we go over 130. That'd be 130. But they want to find out how high up is the UAV, the drone, when you start after 1 hour. So if we're looking at 1 hour, we're at 60 minutes. So 60 minutes is somewhere around here. They want to know, if it's 60 minutes, what is the height of the drone? So how can we get the height of the drone after 60 minutes? What's our smartest approach? Is the 60 an X or a Y value? The minutes. Anybody? The 60 is an X, right? Isn't it? The minutes. So why don't we just take 60 and put it here? If we just take 60 and put it here, we take half of 60, which is 30, so we have negative 30 plus 65. That's going to equal Y. That's going to equal the height. So the drone's going to be at 35 feet. 35 feet after 1 hour. Does that make sense? After 1 hour, the drone's at 35 feet, which makes some sense because if this kind of keeps going, if we extend this down to an hour, this is going to keep going until it gets to 35. Right? 1 hour later, the drone's at 35 feet. So that's a table. This is a table. It's a similar question. I want you to pause the video and try this problem. Now you try. And this might be the end. This might be as far as we get today. So pause the video and give this problem a shot. If you have trouble, just go back to the previous problem that we were just doing and see how that goes. I'll see you in a moment. I want to make a couple important points here. I'm going to show you with a highlighter. They say that the nighttime employees, right, his function is this, okay? And then the daytime employee, right, the daytime employee, the table shows the daytime employee. So all of this is for our daytime employee. So there's two different functions going on here. So don't make that mistake. There's two different things happening at once. Somebody works the night shift, and his earnings are figured out by the yellow. And somebody works the day shift. His earnings are figured out on that table in blue. So pause the video, do your best work. We're going to end the video there. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.